Hello everyone and welcome to the last episode to be called Down Memory Lane. More details at the end of this video. In the previous iterations of Dragon Quest, or Dragon Warrior depending on the version, we had the very first Japanese RPG, followed by what you could consider a very unbalanced nice try. Given that many Japanese gamers consider Dragon Quest III as one of the very best games of all time, according to a recent poll, I think we're in good hands today. And we'll see if they're right with the original version of Dragon Warrior 3, which I'll refer to as Dragon Quest III from now on just to be consistent with the rest of the series.
Just like the rest of the series, we have our magic trio of Yuji Horii on the scenario and on the big boss chair, Akira Toriyama as a character and monster designer, and Koichi Sugiyama for the music, with programming itself being done by Shunsoft. And if these happy friends managed by their fingernails to make Dragon Quest II in a little over 6 months, they had a full year to make Part 3. And it's in February of 1988 that it came out in Japan, while in Dragon Ball, Goku was finishing off the evil King Piccolo. Just a quick note before we begin. For my videos of the first 2 Dragon Quests, I played remakes, but I learned that many elements from these games actually appeared in later installments, like the bank that actually appeared in Dragon Quest III. So to better look at how the series evolves and avoid annoying purists, I played the original NES version. But if after this video you want to play it, I highly recommend you play one of the remakes on Game Boy Color, on iOS or Android for $10, or just between us on the quote-unquote Super Famicom with an English patch. But you didn't hear it from me. In the remakes, not only are the graphics often better, but there are more skills, more quests, there are medals to find, there's one more class. It's just a better game, okay? So just like in the previous Dragon Quest titles, you control, well, yourself, who can be female this time. So now you wake up and you need to go see the king, who tells you that your dad, the fearless and flawless Ortega, went away to vanquish the evil fiend Baramos, who's terrorizing the world with his army of monsters. Problem is, it's been a while since we last heard of him, and judging by the intro, yeah, I'm sure he's fine, no problem. So I ask of you, Ortega's offspring, who never showed us any sign of talent, to give up on any project you might have, to go find your father and save the world. It is your destiny. Only you can do it. I don't like my dad, he's violent. Come on, let's go my boy, you're great, I know you can do it. But you know it's dangerous out there. There are monsters, you can travel all alone, so you need to go to the bar to ask for help. So our hero gets there and he's like, bartender, I'm here to make a team of glorious adventurers to help me save the world from darkness. Free of charge, of course. So first I shall choose the goof off. So okay, seriously, you can choose the soldier, who's pretty much self-explanatory, the face-breaking fighter, the healing pilgrim, the dark magic wielding magic wizard. There's also a hidden class of sage who can do both. There's the merchant who can find more money and items after battles, for what it's worth. And finally we have the goof off. Okay, seriously, let's look at the manual to see what's up with that guy. Without exaggeration, a useless living being to take along in your quest. As goof off's level increases, his usefulness becomes more and more apparent.
Sadly, I'm not quite convinced by your skills, my dear.
The remakes add the thief, who can help find items in dungeons and have fewer random battles. And now that I've finished the game, I think that in my next playthrough I'll have one in my party. And yes, these adventurers from the bar are actually the only characters you get in your party. And if in Final Fantasy I you picked your fated heroes of light and you were stuck with them forever, in Dragon Quest III, anytime you get tired of your soldier, you can change him for a merchant, for example, and get back him later, as strong as he was before. Which gives a lot of freedom on how you can manage your team. Although, whatever happens, a brand new character will always start at level 1, even by the end of the game. Further into the game, characters can also change classes, but we'll come back to it. As for the fights in general, well, it's the same thing as Dragon Quest II actually. Classic turn-based combat, in which the order is mostly decided by agility. Monsters are often split into groups, the sun is green, the grass shines, smiley slime smile, nothing to shake a snake at. There are a few big points in which the game gets much better to find what I think will be the eternal Dragon Quest recipe. and the first is balance. In particular with magic use. In Final Fantasy, you had to think about 5 minutes wondering if a fire spell was worth casting, as you had so few magic points. And in Phantasy Star, I used my magic mostly for healing purposes, as I wanted to save on my team's cholesterol level with all the burgers they were eating. In Dragon Quest III and the rest of the series for that matter, spells are far less expensive to cast and they work. I admit that, of course, the random encounter rate is through the roof. And you do have to be careful towards the end of a dungeon, but that was the rule of thumb back then. However, there's the single worst spell that monsters can cast on your team that is worse than death. Limbo. When one of your mercenaries is struck with Limbo, he's sent right back at the bar of the starting city of Aliahan. No need to tell you how annoying it is to go back to the other end of the world to get him back, even though you do get teleportation spells really early. But who says fighting says level? And here again, mages do learn spells at a pretty brisk pace. Sometimes two in the same level. You know, you kill a bunch of skeletons and then boom, you learn how to turn into a dragon. Even stats wise, you do see a difference from a level to the next. Dear God, Tifa, what just happened? But then there are also times in which the game just wanna waste your time. But okay, enough stat talk. Dragon Quest III is a loved game, actually even today still a favorite among the series fans, and it's certainly not because of its battle system and its stats. It's mostly because of the incredible sense of adventure and discovery that is dripping from this game. And that's funny because if you've played the previous Dragon Quest titles, its world is similar. You have the castles with the save point king, the endlessly charming little towns that come right out of their previous Dragon Quests, the lovely monsters infused with some Toriyama magic, including the innumerable slimes, the mages, Snot, Middle Snot, all wolves who suffer a vision impairment. But at the same time, you never know what is waiting for you around the next mountain. You might find an optional dungeon that doesn't overstay its welcome, with a few treasures to reward your curiosity. Despite its trap and even its puzzles, you might find a teleporting device that brings you nowhere noticeable, for now. Or even better, a small town with its own history, its own culture, and a bit of quests to give you. You might even get news on Ortega's whereabouts once in a while. And for a game in which a good chunk of the story is a big, fine X amount of a MacGuffin, the story bits are pretty good. If in the previous games the raison d'etre of most towns was to tell you, I heard there's a seal where there's a lot of fire, you might find a small village in which you need to stop a series of sacrifices of little girls to a dragon, or another village might be plunged in an eternal sleep that might have been caused by the elves who live close by. Even one of your mercenaries might be involved in one of those stories for an interesting result. All that is even more immersive with its day and night cycle that changes everything. You might have access to people who hide during the day. A boring city where nothing happens might become a pretty big party town during the night. A good mix of all that makes that you never really have to look a long time for your next objective. If you ask around, you're bound to find where to go. And that's a massive plus compared to Dragon Quest II, where finding your next objective with no guide might have been a little bit more simple than understanding the whole lore behind Kingdom Hearts, or understanding everything surrounding those who were there before in Assassin's Creed. You can also apply that to hidden passages that are never too obscure to find. You might even find monster arenas in which you can bet on monster battles and maybe make some extra gold. Searching around on the map and in dungeons always gave me all the EXP and gold I needed to upgrade my equipment or defeat the monsters I came across. I only needed to stop on my tracks to grind experience at the end of the game actually, but thank God it was still far from the brick wall that was Dragon Quest II, in which I needed 10 levels to survive. By the way, why was it that unbalanced? According to an interview they did at the time, when they were doing Dragon Quest II, no one on the team had the time to play the entire game from start to finish. They learned their lesson, thank God.
Like a lot of Japanese RPG fans, I especially love them starting with the SNES and PlayStation generations, which you could consider the golden age of the genre. But something happened with Dragon Quest III that I didn't see coming at all. I was having a lot of fun, and there's a lot of surprises I didn't see coming for a game of this generation.
As I said earlier, the discovery of the world's mysteries, added to a feeling of familiarity in many levels, pushed me to continue playing, and to go into more details, I would consider it a spoiler, as this game is based on discovery. It's also why I gave up on the format of the previous Dragon Quest reviews, by the way. So if you have the smallest intention whatsoever of playing Dragon Quest III in whatever version, which I can recommend enough if you like Dragon Quest 1 or 2 or the first Final Fantasy, skip to this timestamp. because I don't want to literally ruin your experience. And another small tip before we move along, do not look at anything else concerning this game, because there's a pretty cool story detail, like the true nature of this game. It's kind of like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker's relationship. You know, it's a great plot twist, but it's spoiled everywhere. Okay, last warning, let's go. So eventually, you leave the island of Aliahan, and that's when the adventure really starts. Which brings you to the city of Romali, which has a monster arena with a save point king, who lets you take his place once his kingdom has been saved. He wants to take a break, I guess. Later on, you get to a vast desert with the Oasis of Isis, governed by a queen this time. And there are a lot of cats around, even on the battlefield in the desert. And there's also a pyramid close by, and that's when you tell yourself,
Hey, it's just like in Egypt! Ah!
A good while later, you move on to your quest, still helping people around. You know I'm not telling you every single thing. And you end up helping the king of Portoga getting pepper from the city of Baharata, located by the Ganges River.
Hey, what's going on here?
Up north from there, you can find the Temple of Dharma to change class, which I'll come back to later. And a bit west, thanks to the boat you gained in Portoga, you can get to a small island of Japan, led by a certain Himiko, that's terrorized by a demon dragon Orochi. Yep, that's what I thought. But it's not just a superficial thing that this game actually takes place on Earth, with dragons and zombies of course, that surprised me. But it's the small stories in there, like your own merchant who leaves your team to help a city grow, and you see it develop over time and everything goes well. But eventually, he works his people too much. They rise up against him and they send him to prison. Your own teammate is a jerk. That's not something I saw coming. And then there's a massive plot twist that is spoiled loud and clear all over the internet. After a good 30 hours of gameplay, you beat up Baramos. Peace is back, monsters are gone, all is good. And then the Master Archfiend Zoma appears and we have to go to the World of Darkness to vanquish him. This World of Darkness has nothing but black skies, and its name is Alefgard, the world of Dragon Quest I, centuries before that game. You do quests that you heard had been done before by the legendary hero in Dragon Quest I, and after killing Zoma, you gain the title of Roto. All this time you were playing as the legendary hero talked about so much in the previous game, and I seriously think it's a great plot twist. But everyone who talks about this game says it's a prequel from the previous two, and it's sad, but it's the internet, what can you do? I tried to hide it behind a spoiler wall, I did what I could, I guess. I mentioned it a little bit, but our good friends, not our hero, can change their classes when they get to level 20 by going to the Shrine of Dharma. Problem is that they go back to level 1, but they keep all the spells they had and their stats are just divided by 2. So yeah, they're level 1, but it's a very strong level 1. To add to that, thanks to the fact that you can keep your equipment at the bank, you can keep everything so that this character is not too weak. I wanted to try this out by hiring Tifa, a fighter, to turn her into a soldier with some added strength. But she grows so much that in the end, I just kept her as a fighter. There was also a similar problem with the mages. Having a physical character who can do some healing spells can be tempting, but seeing as most useful spells are learned at higher levels, like a proper resurrection spell. Huh, Uni? There's nothing to bother you, what are you even doing? Sorry. And let's not forget that the magic points to cast them will also be half, and since soldiers and fighters don't gain any MP, they will never go up either. I just kept the same team all the way. I've beaten up the final boss without ever changing classes, and that's okay. The game gave me the option to say no to its system. I imagine that if you were to grind levels like a maniac and changing classes over and over, you could have a crazy team. The option is there, but I didn't see the point. The remakes also do have endgame bonus dungeons to go with this though. Also, thanks to an item, a character can become a sage, who has both black and white magic. But the goof-off, who is about as useful as a 4K resolution on a cell phone, can become a sage, free of charge, no items. When Dragon Quest III came out in Japan, it sold over 1 million copies in its first day. There was a wave of students who skipped school, of course, but there was also a lot of people who skipped work to get it as well. And now, before you tell me that you do it every midnight release of a Call of Battle Theft Redemption 12 Battle Royale Edition, that's not something that really happened back then. From that moment on, Enix will only release Dragon Quest games in Japan during the weekends. Until Dragon Quest XI actually, they just restarted it. In America, when it came out in 1992, the Super NES had been released for months at that point, along with Final Fantasy IV among other awesome games. The next Zelda was coming up, and the Sega Genesis was also selling like hotcakes. So when Dragon Warrior 3 came out on the old NES, it was as noticed as a fart in the desert. Well, they did still sell 100,000 copies, I guess. So, Dragon Quest III is a game I wholeheartedly recommend if you want a retro RPG that will make you experience a great adventure. I can't wait to see how the series evolves after that, because let's not forget that for now a dramatic moment is like 3 or 4 bubbles of text. As usual, if you want to play the original, keep a guide around for the items and spell descriptions. Or good luck figuring out that the spell's by-kill doubles your attack power. So, how will I rank these 3 Dragon Quest games in order? The first one has its charm, and it knows how to stay short. The second one seems to enhance everything the first one offered, but there are so many problems with its second half that it falls in the bottom. And Dragon Quest III, at last, found the perfect balance. You can also tell me your favorite Dragon Quest game in the comments.
So, as I said in the intro, this is the last episode to be called Down Memory Lane. Starting on the next one, you'll start to see a bit more variety on this channel. Mainly, I'll start talking about more recent titles. You know, Down Memory Lane was me talking about all the game in my collection in a chronological order in a straight line. But on the next episode, starting next episode, I'll focus more on a few series and I'll hop in between them. I won't do any marathons or something, because I know that after like 8 videos on Final Fantasy, some people might get tired of it and want to hear about Mario or something. So I'll add a bit of variety in here and a few surprises here and there. So next episode, we'll start things up slowly with my favorite NES game of all time with our good old Italian plumber. On the next, Pat, the serial gamer. Also, quick note here, the channel itself will change names, so subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to not miss it. Ring that bell. Continue to grow awesome, and I'll see you guys then. Bye bye.